Welcome back to DIY Garage. Today we're going to be assembling this North Star 31 gallon towable tank, and it is item number 282785. I bought it on Amazon. I think it was $330, something like that. I opened it up already and pulled out the instructions just to see what tools I would need to assemble it. And it looks like you need a flathead screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver, and a 1/2 inch wrench. It also tells you use a torque wrench, which I don't have one out here. I can get one out of the garage, but I just didn't bring one out. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pull everything out of the box. Hopefully everything's there, and we'll get started. Okay, so before I unbox the cart here, I'm gonna open it up and just point out where the hardware is and also where the instructions were located. And when you open this, you'll see that there is a tag here on the lid that says that the parts are shipped inside the tank. So inside you'll find a bag with, I'm not really sure everything that's in here. Well, looks like I need 2 hands for that, so I'm going to go ahead and set the camera down, get this unpacked, and we'll get into it. Okay, so now we have the cart completely unboxed. I'll be honest, it looked like there were a lot more parts in here when it was still in the box, but once I got it all out and laid out, it doesn't really look that bad. I guess I should have mentioned in the beginning of this video, this cart it has a spraying wand, and it has what you can see here, an extendable boom that hangs off the back. So you can use this for spraying pesticides, water, anything liquid. It runs off a 12 volt, which here's the motor here, and then here's the connection that you tap into your tractor, ATV, whatever you're using. So there's a pressure gauge there, and all of the hardware to put it together is over there. This is the base underneath that the axle will go through and the tank will actually mount to. So with that, not sure how long this is going to take. It is 10 after 2 now, so we'll time it, see how long it takes. I'm not going to rush, I'll take my time, and hopefully it's not too bad. So here we go. Okay, so it looks like the first thing to do here is put what they're calling the tow bar assembly with the cart assembly, which are the 2 bigger red parts here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out all of the hardware needed to put those together and get started again. I think I've got started about 3 or 4 times now, but yeah. Okay, so this first step calls out for 5/16 by 2 1/4 inch bolts, 3 of them. They are going to be the longest bolts supplied with this cart, and also 3 nuts to go with them. In the box there are 3 bags of hardware, all containing different pieces. So the 2 1/4 inch long bolts, or 2 1/2, whatever they were in this bag that had the pins and the hose clamps. And this bag here, I don't know, I might have had that a little higher than the camera, so it's this bag here. This one here has more hose clamps and the nuts that you're going to need for this first step. And then you also have another bag that are just all the same size bolts. Those will be used in the next step. So we're going to go ahead and start assembling this. Axle goes through these holes back here. Oh, that's going to be a little noisy there, but that's okay. Okay, and this piece, let's see here. I might assemble this back here a little further, probably where all of my stuff is in the way. So maybe what I'll do is I'll move this cart. And if I don't trip and kill myself first. That gives me a little more room there. Okay, so looks like here the directions are saying slide this piece, what I don't know what they're calling this, the tow bar assembly, I believe, into the cart assembly here. There are a variety of holes within this, and it looks like you line up the rear hole in the tow bar assembly with the rear hole in the cart assembly. This is showing, the directions are showing the bolts to come in from the side that I'm on, but I don't think it really matters unless later on there's a reason for it specifically to go into that hole. Okay, something I just noticed here is on the directions, I thought it was telling you step by step on the one sheet here, but what this is doing, and I'll show you here, these instructions are for two different models, which is nice, but I should have caught that from the beginning. So it looks like I have to install another piece first before I go ahead and start bolting these in. So I'm going to undo what I just did and do it the right way, following the right model. Okay, so I know I said it in the beginning of the video, but I don't remember which model I had. I have the 28275, and I was starting to assemble this like it was the 282780. So I'm going to have to take that back apart. Before you do this step, you're going to have to put these pieces on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first, and we'll end up back here when I get this undone. Okay, so it looks like I didn't necessarily have to undo everything I did here. We're going to go ahead and still use this back hole like I mentioned previously. The only difference is I'm going to put this bolt through the furthest hole. Is that these pieces, they go in upside down, and they actually use this middle bolt hole here, and I did not catch that before. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there like so. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten these. Something I just read in the directions, you saw how tough of a time I had this sliding this axle through those holes. But it does tell you if you have a tough time sliding that through to go ahead and loosen the bolts that are on here to allow it to slide freely. So I'll do that as I'm tightening these down, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, I went ahead and tried to loosen those 4 bolts back there. See if I could get the axle to slide through a little easier, but there are a lot of different things going on back there where if you loosen them, the other side I believe has to stay flush with the cart assembly, as they're calling it. So it's a little tough to get in there, and also it could also be that this channel isn't completely at 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble it the way that it is, and if I have to tweak it once everything's together, then that's when I'll do it. Also, it looks like These are all to be torqued to 20 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these other bolts and nuts here, which I haven't done yet. So I'm going to do that now. So these two centerpieces here are slotted, and I was trying to tighten the bolt and the nut, but it's a little difficult because you have a bunch of moving parts here together. These brackets here, as you're trying to tighten the bolt and the nut, they want to twist and move from the slot. So I'm going to assemble it to the cart next, which looks like is the next step. And hopefully when it's attached to the cart, it'll make it a little easier to tighten these. So I'm going to flip the cart upside down now, which is what it's telling you to do, and attach this assembly to that. Move this out of the way first. As you'll see underneath of this, there are 8 holes that are already threaded. Looks like there's some type of insert in here. Clearly you couldn't tap into this tank, the walls are too thin. So that looks like where this assembly attaches, so that's what we're going to do. And it looks like here, use the bolts that are in the bag of bolts only. Okay, so I laid this on here just to see which holes I was going to need, and it wasn't making sense at first. I'm like, I can't see the inserts in the front here, but that goes right back to what I was saying before, where these two brackets on the front are slotted, so that's why they weren't lining up, and it took me a minute to realize that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 4 bolts in the back 4 holes. For now, I'm not going to tighten them. I'm just going to put them in there to hold it. Then I'll rearrange these brackets up here so that I get the holes lined up with the correct slots. Okay, so now that I got the 2 bolts on the front here, at least a little snug, I just noticed that I don't have it centered, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that first. Again, I'm not cranking these right now. I'm just sort of snugging them just so that I can get these brackets secured here with this piece. Okay, now I have those tightened. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these other ones, securing this assembly to the tank. Okay, so now that I have this assembly of the frame attached to the tank. Next step is, and this is Peaches. Everybody say hi to Peaches. You coming to help? Peaches? You coming to help? No, she just wanted to visit for a second. She's still here. But the next step, it says, is to put the wheels on the axles, so that's what I'm going to do. You'll notice here that one side has the valve stem. There's also a grease fitting on the other side. Clearly, the valve stem goes outward. Where are you? Huh? She likes to help me when I'm working outside, so. Right? Right? The two axle washers, I actually didn't know what they were first. They're attached to this piece here. Or not attached, but they were slid over it. I don't know, I guess that was done by whoever packed the parts here, but you would think that they would end up in one of these bags rather than along this, I guess like a siphon tube or something. So it calls for a washer and a cotter pin, or whatever you want to call these, spring pins, axle pin is what they're calling it. But here, and you'll see how it's really not that difficult to slide, but it definitely isn't as easy as I think that it should be. But you put the washer on first and then the pin through the hole, like so, and put the other one on. Yeah, this axle is probably going to need a little bit of an adjustment. That was hard to push through that way, and I think it should be a little easier. Granted, the tires and the wheels spin freely on the axle, so I really don't know if that axle needs to be spin freely, if that makes sense. Okay, the next step is to put the siphon tube in and some of the other plumbing parts. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and we'll get to that. Alright, so I went ahead and flipped the cart over and just looked at the next step here and what it looks like we're doing, and they're calling this draw tube, so not a siphon tube. So whenever you look at it, it'll say draw tube. So mine, I'm not sure if they all do, mine came with the suction strainer already attached to it. So I'll get up close here to show you. You see the strainer there, and that just slides right off like so. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this end and put that into, I believe it's the rear rubber grommet on the tank, and apply the straining cap or the strainer to the tube where it came off of once it's through the top of the tank. So to do that, it tells you to remove the lid, which makes sense. So pretty simple. And right now, there's nothing else in the tank. All that was in there were all the parts. So, okay, and that's something I was thinking about doing, was adding a little bit of dish soap, and that's what it tells you in the directions here. Most of the time I don't read the actual directions. I look at the pictures because it's pretty self-explanatory. But it did say for ease of installation, you can add a little soap and water solution to the grommet for it to be a little easier to slide this back down into the tank. So all I'm doing now is I'm just applying the strainer to the bottom of the tube, which pretty simple. And then it says to put this draw tube until it touches the bottom of the tank. You can see in there in the picture where the strainer is supposed to touch the bottom of the tank. It's right near the drain plug of the tank, which that also makes sense because that way you're getting as much whatever you have in here out. Okay, so it's telling you now to align the upper and lower hose brackets with the inserts on the front of the tank here. We're going to be using some more of the bolts that were on the same bag, and they are going to be torqued to 5 foot-pounds. So these are the two pieces that are needed here. And now that I'm moving some of these parts, maybe I will slide the cart up a little bit here. Get some of this other stuff out of the way. So this piece here with the hole in it, that will go at the bottom of the tank, oriented as such. I'm going to go ahead and stand the tank up a little bit just so it's a little easier to access. That didn't work the way I planned. Okay, the next piece is this one, and it gets oriented opposite so that it sits just like this. And this will mount to the tank with this facing upward. Okay, now that step is done. We are on step 6 now. So that was step 5. And step 6, it's telling you to remove the shipping plugs from the pump ports. So I'm not exactly sure how you do that here. It's just that, I see, this is a locking pin sort of. So on the side of the plug here, you'll see, or the side of the pump, there are the plugs here. I guess these are shipping plugs, and then I guess this slides forward to hold your connection in place, and this side is the same way. So I'm going to remove both of those. Maybe the other side was a little simpler. That's because that lock was slid forward. So if you have that problem, that could be what it is. Okay, so what it does tell you to do here is to insert these fittings, lubricate the O-rings with water to make it a little simpler. So I went and got a little water. I'm gonna go ahead and lubricate this O-ring a little before inserting it into the pump. It's showing that this fitting here goes onto the side. You can see the orientation here. I don't know what you're gonna call each side, but put that in and I guess lock it in place with that locking pin, and now it's in. So I don't know what orientation. It looks like it faces on the picture to the back of the pump or front. I guess it all depends on what you call it. Oh, looks like there's some water in there already, probably from test. The next, put the valve or the valve regulator on. So that is going to be oriented this way. And here you'll see how this fitting is oriented. And this one gets put in this way so that the pressure readout is facing towards the red part of the pump. Also going to lubricate this O-ring with some water like it says. And that's nice, they just slide right in. Hardly took any pressure at all. And I'll just slide that locking pin forward and there you have that. Okay, now that I have the valve regulator and the fitting installed, I'm going to put it into the tank here, or onto the tank I should say. I'm not gonna lie, I tried this once already, and it tells you to apply soap to this bypass here so that it slides into the grommet easier. I forewent the dish soap, and when I put it into the grommet, I put it all the way in and realized that that wasn't supposed to be the case, because it left the tank up in the air, and this mounting surface did not sit flush with the top of the tank. So I'm going to do what the instructions said and apply some soap, Dawn, to that fitting, or at least to the inside of the grommet here, just with my pinky finger, just so that that slides nice and easy down into there. And just to be sure, I may just put some here on this bypass fitting. There we go. And now I shouldn't have the problem like I did before. So you'll see here, there are 4 holes in the top of the tank, right here. They're also have inserts, plastic inserts that are threaded to hold the motor to the top of the tank. So go ahead and line those up, slide that down in, and should be good to go for the hardware. I'm not really sure, it doesn't seem like that fitting is down there very far, which throws me off a little bit. Maybe that's a certain tolerance that they're off on or something. So we'll still put it together and see if it works. Maybe the hose comes up through there and hits that bypass, and the grommet's just there to seal it. So we'll figure that out here in a little bit. And now it's telling you to use the number 10 24 by 1.1 screws. They came in the bag, not with the pins, but with the nuts that we used in the first step. It's also calling for 4 washers. So it looks like there are 3 screws that are 1.1 and 1 screw that's 1.25. And indeed, that's what they gave you. So the longer one here looks like it's for the tether on the lid. So for this piece here, when screwing the motor down, the pump, you use that. So it's also calling for 4 washers. You don't want to lose those. And we're going to go ahead and screw this down to the tank. For this, you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. Okay, and this is how I'm going to do this one here. I'll just take the tether, slide my screw and washer to it, and then insert it into the tank. These holes don't seem to line up perfectly, so it might take a little finagling to get it to work here. And see, I didn't tighten all of these other screws either. They're just on there. They're not even snug. They're just holding it in place. There. I don't think it matters where you put the tether. It tells you over near this valve here, so that's the one I used. That doesn't seem to be sitting in that hole correctly, but it should be okay. Looks like it's a little off. but I don't want to break it, so I'm not going to force it here. Okay, now that I have that on, I'll screw the lid back on. It looks like I'm done inside the tank there. And there's that part. Okay, next, step 8. It looks like I'm going to turn this around so that we can install the booms onto the back of this. Okay, and it looks like they should be oriented as such. So this one here that came with the T already connected is going to go on the left side, so that this tube here connects directly to the pump. And this part of the T will connect to the other boom. For this, we're going to be using the same bolts, screws, whatever they want to call them, that came in the bag of only bolts. And again, you have your plastic threaded inserts on the back here. Side note here, looking back onto the previous step when we put the pump on, it just says do not over tighten those screws. It does not give any torque value for those. This and this, I'm just going to eyeball this here. I don't know if it's going to be straight or not. And these are also to be torqued to 5 foot-pounds. And once I'm finished assembling this entire thing, I'll go back and torque everything, but for right now, I just want to get it together. So it looks like here that this is supposed to connect directly to, this valve here. It looks a little short. It might be okay as long as that other line that comes over will tap into here. Okay, also in this step, because we are putting this hose over top of that connector, it does call for hose clamps. So I believe all of these hose clamps, no, there are definitely smaller hose clamps and there are larger hose clamps. It looks like it at least. If not, they're very close to being the same size. I'm going to use, it looks like it could be a smaller one. It could be just that this one's a little bit more tight. No, there's definitely 2 different sizes here. Yes, there are 2 different size hose clamps, and it tells you here in the parts list. I don't know if that makes it clear. These 2 here. So the one we're going to be using for this step is, and it tells you here in the instructions, I don't know if you can see that, 30746, and that is the smaller one. Put that on like so. And I'm not going to put that on yet or tighten it until I have the other boom on, just to make sure that I can adjust the position of this if I need to. Okay, the next, this boom, this side, and we're using the same bolts as before. And again, these get torqued just like the other ones did, to 5 foot-pounds. And we'll worry about that later. Okay. Also, we're going to be using the same hose clamp that we used, the smaller one before. And that's going to go over this here, like so. And that's going to go into the other side of the T here, which this is nice that this hose is a little longer, because that allows me to install the hose onto the fitting on the pump a little bit further. Right now I only have it seated just past the ribs, but now I have it all the way connected, and that's much better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these hose clamps. For that, you just need a straight screwdriver or a nut driver. I'm not really sure what size nut driver you would use. I just have a straight screwdriver here, so I'm just going to use that. Okay, looks a little funky, but that should work. Okay, next on to step 10, we're going to be installing the draw tube hose. And for this, we're going to be using the larger hose clamps that I couldn't figure out before. So it looks like this goes onto the tank. Not sure which way yet. Okay, I see how it goes here. Turn this so that you can see it. The draw tube is going to go from the pump here to the line back here that had the strainer on it. As far as these wires, I'm not really sure if they should be up or down. I'm not sure if it matters. But put the hose clamp on each side here. I mean, for those of you that know how hose clamps work, you don't really need to see this. That slides over there very easily. And the same with that one together, very, very easily. Okay, here, same thing, nut driver or flathead screwdriver. I have a screwdriver, so that's what I'm using. Now, just tighten these hose clamps that you just put on here. And we'll move on to the next step, which looks to be the assembly of the wand. Okay, now that I have those hose clamps tightened, we're going to go ahead and assemble the wand. That one is step 11. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and attach this hose to the wand here, and for that you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and also another hose clamp. The hose comes with a couple zip ties, so I'm going to go ahead and clip those. Put your hose clamp on, and then go ahead and slide this over. They're calling it the hose barb. Give it a little twisting action. Okay, I'm not sure where that camera cut off there, but I installed the hose onto the wand here, and next we're going to be installing it onto the tank. So for this, it looks like you're going to need this hose clip, another hose clamp, and the last remaining bolt that was all in the same bag of all bolts. So let's figure out how this goes. So over here on this side of the tank, there's another threaded insert. So it looks like there is where this hose clip goes. So I'm just gonna take this into the hose here, put a hose clamp on here, and then we're gonna take this, I'm gonna take this sticker off. Max pressure, 6.9 bar, 100 PSI. So I'm just going to take this hose clip here, put the hose, actually I'm going to ignore that hose clip for now. I'm going to put the hose onto this knob here and hopefully not break it. Okay, got that on. Make sure you put the hose clip on first. That doesn't seem like that would be all that easy to get that back off. So we'll leave that up there. Go ahead and take your hose clip, squeeze it together there. And again, I don't know if this thing's going to be oriented this way or this way. We'll figure it out. I'll just put it on so that it's on there to hold it. And then once it's finished being assembled, then I'll worry about turning it the direction I think that it should go. This bolt here, just like all the other ones, it tells you to torque to 5 foot-pounds. I'm just gonna leave that loose for now. Okay, and that completes step 12. So step 13, which looks to be the final step, is to, I feel like I missed something here. But okay, the last step in the assembly process here, it looks like, is to install the hitch bracket assembly, which is this. And you'll see here, it goes in this orientation so that your pin slides down through that way. So for this, there are 2 bolts that are longer than all the other bolts, and that's what this one here is for. So what you're going to do is, I'm just going to throw this in here now, just for purposes of assembling it, and then once I line it up with either my quad, ATV, or one of the tractors, I'll determine the correct height that I want it to be. So I'm just going to put it together now. I probably won't tighten anything just to get it into position here. Also, you'll notice that there are staggered holes. They're staggered on the back of here. They are also staggered on the front of this as well. I'm just going to install it now at the highest point. And I'm not even going to tighten any of this here. Not until I see what I'm connecting it to. Okay, so now that that's done, luckily we don't have any pieces left over minus this, but we all know what this is for. I'll connect that later and make sure everything works. So here, it looks like, I don't know if this goes in here like this. It looks like it. And then you can slide that in there, that little bracket, and that holds that real nice. It doesn't look, okay, my fault. I see now. That answers this question. I'm going to orient this hose clip so that it is basically vertical on the tank. Like so. The hose goes around here. I'm not going to tighten it right now, but the hose goes on there like so. And maybe you have to tighten it. Now this slides down the wand and clips into there. And there you have it. looks here, I think these close. It might not be all that simple. They fold forward, so that was my problem. So there are these little pins here. Pull those out, and I'll get a picture of that. Slide your pin in. And now your cart's ready to tow. So I'm going to get this hooked up to the tractor, make sure everything works, and there you have it. There's your 31-gallon North Star towable sprayer. I'm going to be using it to water grass for now. In the future I might be using it for something else, but here's to hoping it works. That'll do it for this video for DIY Raj. And if you like this video or the other videos that I've posted, please hit the like button down below and also subscribe. That way you'll be notified anytime that I post another video. This is DIY Raj. Have a good one.